Hey Spiros, this is Umair. I am your host for this show on BetterTech. A little bit about BetterTech is that we have this channel to bring the technology leaders of the world in front of other people and let the world know about their thought process, where they think the technology is today, where it's going to go in the future. We also talk about certain aspects of technology as well as the certain aspects of the roles that could really be fruitful for our listeners or audience. So today we welcome you over here. I think we should start if you can take a little bit of time and introduce yourself to our audience, what you do, what's your role, and what are some of the areas that are of interest to you.
Oh, absolutely. And thank you for giving me the opportunity. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. My name is Spiros Liolis. I am based in Atlanta, Georgia, and with a little bit over 25 years in the technology and consulting arena. I currently have a CT position for Microfocus, as well as I have invested in certain technology companies with an interest in intelligent automation, with neuroscience, and everything that it is really emerging these days. The things that really pique my interest are areas where I do believe the future is going towards, anything around automation, anything around intelligence, anything around neuroscience, anything really that it is emerging. I try to stay on top of things, not necessarily all of them, but I do try to, like I said, make sure that I do understand where the market is going, how I could stay up to speed with this market and the technologies. Being around, I've traveled to a number of places and delivered a number of consulting and opportunities and projects pretty much all around the world. So with that, I guess, I should be able to give a fairly good perspective into the questions that will be following up. Thank you.
That sounds wonderful. So seems like we are talking to someone who has a rich vein of experience, and we can definitely benefit from your experience, and our audience will definitely benefit from that. So you talked about that you always you're always on the look of where the world is going, where the technology is going, and understand these areas, try to work in these areas, as also invest in these areas. So one of the things that I picked out of the conversation is your focus on automation and intelligent automation. So, I mean, the automation is here for some time, and obviously AI is here for some time now. So, how would you really define automation and intelligent automation in a context?
Well, you've said it right. Automation has been here for quite some time, and automation alone is really to take many of the human tasks and automate them, or put them into some sort of a machine to do so. Now, this automation has come into a number of forms. It's been through just plain machinery or robotics. And of course, RPA these days, which is a software robotic version. Now, intelligent automation itself, obviously, there is what Wiki says, and everybody follows, kind of the wikis and the Gartners, which I have the highest respect for the analysts and the groups anyway. But in my point of view, intelligent automation is to really go beyond the human thinking, is to go to the best of our capabilities, of course, and our understanding, is to really start thinking way out of the box and the norms. Intelligent automation is not just asking the machines to do part of the thinking for us, is to really use any kind of thinking that we are aware of and putting into use. So in my interpretation of intelligent automation is to really be disruptive, not only in the technology space, but in the way that we're thinking, the out of the box in its real context. We need to, as engineers ourselves, right? I mean, I'm an engineer by degree and by heart, and when we say automation, or we think of it, or many of us think of it in a pure, proper, and engineering STEM terms. We got to go beyond that. We got to bring arts and we got to bring arts thinking. We got to bring biology thinking. We got to bring physics and chemistry things that they are out of this world kind of thinking into this automation. This is what I think it's proper intelligent automation. I'm not speaking science fiction here. I hope I'm not speaking science fiction. I hope the people.
No, you're not.
I hope people are not considering me to be a lunatic. But we got to take intelligence way out of the norms that we have taken it so far. So that's what I think intelligent automation altogether is.
So what I'm gathering is that probably if the name intelligent automation suggests that probably some RPA and other robotic process automation mixed with a sort of AI or machine learning may create intelligent automation. Your definition of intelligent automation is much wider than that. You feel that it's a different level of thinking that needs to be brought into designing systems that can really create intelligent automation. Is this a correct statement?
It is a correct statement. Yes. Well, it's safe for many people to assume that RPA put together with business process modeling or remodeling, incorporating artificial intelligence, cognitive sciences. People are saying this is what makes intelligence automation altogether, and I'm fine with this statement, which is for many people it's a safe statement, but it's just safe. Right. I think we need to go beyond safety. I think we need to explore with calculated risks. Don't get me wrong. We're not going to go on the wild here, but with certain calculated risks, we need to go beyond safe. We need to start thinking way out of the box. Some of these, technology predecessors have done in the 30s, 40s, actually starting in the 20s, and then 30s, 40s, and of course the later years. But I think we need to go beyond that. So yes, for the purposes of any discussion to start in terms of intelligent automation, RPA, BPM, AI, cognitive, these will all make up intelligent automation. But I think we need to just stretch those limits a little bit further. I think we just need to go beyond that.
So I was reading through your profile, and the way you describe yourself as Mr. Digital Transformation. So let's touch upon this as well, that what you feel is a digital transformation and how intelligent automation can really play a part in any organization's digital transformation.
Well, digital transformation comes, which is it is the latest buzzword for some things that we have been doing all along, right? I mean, for the technology transformation has been happening pretty much throughout the years. It just had a different terminology, right? And even if we stay just into the IT technology space, we used to call it IT transformation. We called it cloud transformation. We called it shared services transformation. We called it data center transformation. Nowadays, it's digital transformation because it is true that we are expanding the traditional IT to, much more than what it was just touching upon. So digital transformation in these days is everything is to incorporate technology to as many areas of an organization as possible, right? I mean, even in areas where we didn't think we could, in fact, use it, now we are beginning to see use cases to do so. It's really digital transformation, in my point of view. It's really about challenging the status quo of the company itself. Mm-hmm. In the old days, the great founders of technology, I don't want to mention specific people, but, the founders of technology, the founders of Silicon Valley, the big blues. And when I'm talking about blues, I'm not only referring to an IBM, I'm referring to all the companies that really started this technology revolution, especially the information technology revolution. These are the companies that they started thinking way out of the box. So coming back to the point here is we really need to challenge the status quo of everything that is happening in society, and everything that is happening in operations, and everything that is happening with resources, everything that is happening about our go to markets, everything that we do in terms of sales motions and everything. So digital transformation is really about the challenging that status quo and start thinking way out of the box. And this is where intelligent automation comes into place, right? I mean, this is where we're going to be seeing the convergence. We are going to explore ways that we haven't thought before, or, there are a few, very bright cookies out there that they do these things, or they come up with very nice and intelligent solutions that we could use those use cases into the manufacturing, into the production, into the healthcare. So the
So is
intelligent
there?
automation.
I'm just cutting you short over here, but is there an example use case that you can share with us, or can use to elaborate what you really mean by intelligent automation that would not have been possible without adding that sprinkling of intelligence into that? So is there a use case in your mind that you can share?
Well, there are a number of there are probably a number of things, and I'm probably stepping into areas where I don't necessarily want to, but I'm going to use those areas anyway, right? So look at what is happening with the automation of any manufacturing industry, especially due to COVID-19, right? COVID-19 has had brought a number of disruptions, and people started working from home. People were not allowed to go to their spaces. So all of a sudden, the manufacturing companies, or any really company, had to find ways of speeding up the process, of automating as much as possible. Car manufacturers, they had to really come up with solutions and ideas on speed up the manufacturing process, or resume the manufacturing process now with the lack of people. So what they did is they started analyzing all the information, all the data that they had from the from the pre-COVID-19 dates, and they said, okay, how can I start automating this as much as possible so that I can bring back my production? And this is where they started using intelligently, I should say, that information, that data, and said, okay, now I'm going to automate that piece or that part of my production as much as possible. It happened with the healthcare. It happened with the manufacturing companies, especially automotive. It happened really with any company that had some sort of a production line based on mostly people into a production line that is now based mostly on machines, right? So they had to use those internal data sources that they had there and they were available. They also had to use externally available data sources, anything from social media, anything from information about how let's say how the COVID-19 is spiking and how it is developing, so they could see how many people we can bring back into work, how many people need to work from home. All of these, they used all of that piece of information, and they say, okay, I'm going to replan my production based on those findings and based on those predictions. This is what I'm talking about. So these are the type of use cases that I could foresee, or I do see that they are big, fairly realistic, I should say. Obviously, there's going to be a whole lot more, and hopefully we're going to have another session where we could go to specific use cases about healthcare, or specific about financial services, or manufacturing, etc. But these are the type of things that we have in mind.
but what you are saying requires a lot of potential analysis and nimbleness from an organization. Generally, the larger organizations where this kind of stuff could happen, they have a lot of inertia. I mean, they are not really fully on the path of digital transformation, let alone making that transformation intelligent or automation intelligent. So what kind of, what characteristics, in your opinion, an organization should have to make sure they're ready for such kind of initiatives, and maybe intelligent automation and digital transformation can be implemented in such organization?
Well, there are certain characteristics that all companies should have in order to succeed in this global marketplace. You got to be forward thinking, right? I mean, but I don't want to stay that generic, right? A company needs to be, to follow the trends. It needs to be forward thinking. It needs to, again, challenge their own status quo. They need to look at their analysis. They need to look at their market. They really need to position themselves against their competitions and see where they are. Are they losing? Are they winning? And etc. But that's fairly generic. what I really do believe that the majority of the companies need to do is really invest in their people. And they really need to invest in their people to re-enable them to do things that first they like and really enables the company itself. So, and going back to the statement of digital transformation, yes, the technology is here to enable a company and move the company forward, but without looking at the resources, the human resources, or the people aspect, as we call it sometimes, as well as the processes, the business process or operational process, whatever, however you want to define it. Unless you look at all of these elements, the people, process, and technology, you are going to fail. So the characteristic of a company itself needs to look at these three major pillars and move them forward, re-enable, in order for you to succeed in what we call the digital transformation. And it's not just relevant to intelligent automation, it's relevant to everything, really. So it's people, process, and technology are the three major pillars one company needs to have as the true characteristics moving forward. They always need to look at this space.
So, I mean, so that's from the company or organizational perspective. How the role of the CTO, I mean, is responsible to make sure this thing happens and this thing happens well in an organization. I mean, you have been a CTO in your life, and you are a CTO of some organization, an organization right now. How you feel the role of the CTO is important or has changed over time to make sure that he's the driver of all this, or is CTO the driver of all this, or CTO is just a facilitator of all this?
Well, I believe the role of the CTO has evolved over the years, right? It started as a nerd. I'm sorry to say that. I mean, and I
Yeah,
was a nerd
but
myself.
that's what it is. That's what we all used to be.
You're right, and I'm probably considered a nerd myself. But no,
Okay.
the role of the CTO started really as a nerd, someone who was a techie, someone who understood the guts of the technology, the inside out. But over the years, the role of the CTO has in fact evolved to incorporate all of the elements, all the elements that I mentioned earlier on. He starts now to look at the people on the processes side as well. Who is making up his team? Who is making up the resources of the organization that focus on the technology? Who are the key people that they focus on the operational side that drive or that support the technology itself? So the role of the CTO has actually become very instrumental in the overall, not only the intelligent automations, but what we call in digital transformation. And in fact, we're now going to be seeing additional CT-like roles, not necessarily CTOs, but they're going to be CT-based roles that they are going to be assigned into different business units. You should not be surprised if you see a CT-based role in the business unit areas.
Okay.
And I'm talking about outside just the IT or the technology department. You should not be surprised if you see CTs in the sales organizations, the sales and the business development organizations, because these are the guys, ultimately, these are the guys who are going to translate the human language, the business language, as I call it, to the non-human language, which is the IT, the zeros and the ones of the IT people, right? They are going to be the translators of they're going to be sitting in the middle to translate non-human to human language and vice versa. So that role, the role of the CTO, is going to become very key, very instrumental for many organizations. And in fact, he's going to be a key stakeholder in the overall digital transformation. He's going to hold hands with the CIO, with the COO. He's going to be reporting to the CEO. He's going to have some level of he's going to have a level of responsibility when it comes to the compliance of the company, because at the end of the day, it's all about the people, processes, and the technology, how the technology is being used. Are we staying compliant with any regulatory and environment that governs the organization itself? So he's going to become very, very critical. If he's not already, he's going to be. I think we're going to see his role to become even more, let's say, instrumental in all this.
So since we believe that technology is eventually the enabling factor of everything that we do, whether it's sales, marketing, engineering, or whatever, and because there's a technology, so there's a role, a kind of high-level technology role is required or involved in any business function. Is this what you're trying? Is this what you're saying over here?
Yeah, I think yes. It's not just the technology. I think the CTO must look into just beyond the technology and everything that is the technology supports. That's why I keep bringing back the processes, whether IT processes, operational processes, administrative processes, everything that is really supported by the technology itself, and of course the human resources element of it. So I think that's why the CTO, or at least the evolution of this role, is actually going to be very, very critical in this space.
So you had been, you are a CTO in your role. So as a maybe a fellow CTO, what would you advise me in terms of how can I really set up my organization, or what can the groups or structures I can set it up that can really help me flourish the intelligence. I mean, the design thinking, the forward thinking in my organization. I mean, how is there a formula or recipe that kind of stirs innovation or stirs intelligence in the organization? Is there a structure or a formula that one can follow?
Well, I haven't been following a formula myself, really, and I don't think any single formula is going to be right for any company, for the obvious reasons that no two companies are ever the same, right? Even if we're talking about companies within the same industry, no two companies are ever the same. So there's no magic formula, but there are some guiding principles that I do try to follow myself, right? We are in a global company. I'm sorry, we are in a global market. We see developments happening pretty much all around the world. We see development centers anywhere from Southeast Asia to Latin America, to the Middle East, to the US, or the Americas altogether. So we really need to have somebody who is actually a, let's say, multi-discipline, multinational experience, somebody who gets it, somebody who understands culture, somebody who understands how these, how people work, how people negotiate. Because again, your work culture comes to a very large degree based on your, background, your upbringing culture. So somebody who is very fond of, somebody who is taking up a role and who's going to be managing teams pretty much from all around the world, he needs to understand cultures. I think that's one of the key principles that the person must have. The second one is you got to destroy silos. You are, as a CT, you are no longer thinking of the server or the compute or the applications or the storage or the network. You got to destroy those silos. If a company still operates with silos or these type of silos, you got to bring down those walls, right? I mean, you need to have more integrated teams. You need to have teams where they are not just thinking in their particular area of expertise or their comfort zone. And mixing those resources and capabilities and skills is actually very instrumental. You got to give each other within your team the capability, or at least the ability, to think outside of their comfort zone. I think that's the second major principle that a CTO must have. The third one is stay on top of things. You can't really consider yourself a CT of any level, really, unless you stay on top of things. Obviously, you're not going to be able to know everything, right? But you got to have an understanding of the trends, the market, where is the market is, where the market is going, what is the market is asking for. You got to stay on top of things.
So just for sharing with others, is there any particular way you always keep yourself updated? I mean, any particular books, blogs, anything you just read or find out how the tech is going? How would you give? I mean, these podcasts, these blogs, these audios are a great way of updating yourself. But is there something special that you use?
No, I'm a horrible, and I'm sorry to say that, I'm a horrible reader myself, right? I mean, I get distracted when it comes to very long narratives. I prefer to see things. I prefer to see short presentations. I'm a visual person altogether, right? So you show me a one-page narrative or show me a workflow, guess what? I'm going to go with the workflow. I get that. So everyone has his own personal choice. Personally, I go with anything that it is visual, anything that is attracting my eye to go and read it. But others have the capability or have really they enjoy a good book, and if there is a good book, go by all means go read it. People will listen to podcasts, absolutely, and I think we're doing just one now, right? So I don't have any preference, but what I do is stay on top of your game, whether it's a LinkedIn or your industry or forum or an Isaka like board anything. Stay on top of the game. Follow what is it that you want, but stay on top of the game. um, this is really what I do, right? And whether it's an early morning coffee in front of LinkedIn and browsing through my network, or the monthly issue from Isaka's magazine, I don't care. I don't have really any recommendation to give apart from just stay on top of your game. Go out there and read whatever it is that you like to enjoy reading or seeing.
I think that's a good advice. So I guess in the next 2, 3 months, hopefully we will get out of this COVID once the vaccination is out there. And the COVID has changed a lot of things. It has accelerated digital adoption. It has changed many cultural things as well. So as a kind of last question out of this podcast, what would be your advice, or how do you see the organizations are moving and be ahead of the competition in the next 3, 4 years after once this COVID is kind of over, or we learn to live with it?
This is I think we're going into we're entering we've been through an unexplored territory, and I think when people get out of this, they're still going to be in a new unexplored territory, although it's land, right? I mean, imagine how, for example, Christopher Columbus landed in the Americas, and he saw land, so it's a familiar place to see land, right? I mean, you've been outside the sea for so many days and months, and now you see land, so it's familiar. But when you step out of this one, I'm sure he took some very cautious steps about how to explore this. And I think this is the same thing that is going to happen. But it is the exploration that we need to keep in mind, especially from the technology point of view, from the human resources point of view, and of course the operational point of view. We really need to explore new ways of doing business beyond COVID-19. We need to start behaving again as humans, and we need to re-explore the relationships that we've had with partners, with customers, with colleagues and associates, again as humans. It's going to take some time, right? Because people will still fear to a very large degree. But I think we need to bring back what I call the tactile sense, right? I mean, we need to start feeling each other. Don't get me wrong when I say feeling each other, but we need to bring back to a very large degree how we used to work. It's going to take time again. Don't get me wrong. So the exploration of that new landscape beyond, beyond COVID-19 is really what everyone must do. And we need to have this exploratory point of view, as opposed to just being very reserved. Oh, we do not know how we're going to do this, or we do not know. Oh, I'm still afraid of this. Again, calculated risks.
So I guess you and I are already looking forward to the post-COVID world and see that how we can explore and find new horizons over there. I guess we are.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, this is key. This is really key.
Yeah, we are all in the same boat. So Spiros, thank you very much for being with us today. I guess we overshot a bit about our allocated time, but I think it was an interesting discussion, learning CTO leaders' point of view about technology, how it's going to change the world, and what we need to look for in the future. And thank you for being with us. And hopefully, we'll get a chance of talking again and recording another session with you.
Oh, absolutely. And it was really my pleasure. And thank you for giving me the opportunity and the floor to speak. Hopefully, things that I said were not lunatic and they did make sense.
Yeah, yeah.
And really, really looking forward to a next one.
Thank you very much. Thank you again. Bye bye.
All right. Thank you. Bye bye.